Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Today's video is going to be super easy and super fun. Today we will be making some homemade quesadillas. Again, like I just mentioned, there's not a whole lot of ingredients, so I'm going to go over what I have in front of me. So what I have are some soft tortilla shells. You can use either the small ones or the big ones, whatever you prefer to use. I also have some cheese that I'm going to be grating. I have some green onion. I have some black beans, and I have a pepper and some salsa. So that's it. That's not a whole lot of ingredients. That's what I love about this recipe. But something that I really want you to keep in mind that's really important is if you would like to add some pre-cooked chicken, that goes really nicely with this recipe. So instead of black beans, you could add cooked chicken, or you could add cooked chicken and black beans. So you can very much add whatever you'd like. Another thing that goes really nice with this is corn. If you would like to add some corn, please go ahead and do that. But yes, very important. If you are going to add something like chicken, please make sure that it is pre-cooked chicken. Okay, so let's get started. This recipe is it's very like add as much or as little as you want. It's a very fluid recipe, so just try and follow along with me as best you can. So let's get started. So I'm just gonna grab a flour tortilla here, and I'm just gonna fold it kind of slightly here ahead of time. I'm just gonna fold it in half like that. Now on one half, you're actually going to spread about 2 tablespoons of salsa. So the reason I folded it in half is just kind of so that I would have like a little line here. And I'm just gonna actually take, that's about a heaping tablespoon. One, I'm gonna spread that around a little bit. And I'm gonna add one more. So about 2 tablespoons of salsa, and you're just gonna spread that nicely onto one half, only one half of your tortilla. Okay, so I'm actually just gonna move this to the side. So go ahead and do that. And now I'm going to start chopping my veggies that I want in here. Before I do that, what I am gonna do is I'm going to start preheating my pan here, okay? And I'm just gonna put it on low while I'm preheating it because I don't want it to get too hot. So I'm just gonna grab some Pam. You can use any sort of nonstick spray. Just gonna spray my pan, and I'm just gonna put it on low while it preheats. Okay, so now I'm gonna start chopping my veggies that I want. So I'm gonna take a pepper, and I'm gonna start by cutting off the top part here. So this side, I'm gonna start cutting off the top. So please feel free to pause the video at any time, of course. So that's what I'm left with. And now I'm actually just going to cut off just a little bit from the bottom here. A little bit more. I'm gonna put that aside. So that's what I'm left with right now. And now we're going to start carving out the core. So I'm just gonna run my knife along the edges very carefully. Please do this carefully. And our core should basically just fall out of our pepper. just like that. So now we are left with the inside of a pepper. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to cut it down one side. And you see all of these little white strips? I'm actually just gonna cut those off because I don't want those. Please be very careful when doing this. And yeah, feel free, please pause the video or go back as much as you need, because I might be going a little bit too fast for you to follow along. So please pause it and go back as many times as you need to. Okay, so I've cleared out my core and my seeds. So for this recipe, I am going to add half a pepper. So I'm just gonna cut it like that. So I'm actually just gonna cut up half of a pepper. And remember, like I said, this recipe is very fluid, so you can kind of add as much or as little as you want. For this recipe, we're gonna be making about 2 quesadillas that we're gonna cut in half. So you're gonna have 4/4 of a quesadilla. So for cutting a pepper, I'm just gonna start by cutting what I have here into little strips. And if you feel like your pan, as you're doing this, if you feel like your pan is getting too hot, just turn it off and then reheat it once you're ready to put your quesadillas on the pan. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on your pan. Okay, so I've cut my pepper into little strips like that. Now what I'm gonna do is about 2 at a time. I'm just gonna cut them into little cubes. And I'm actually just gonna throw them into this little bowl that I have here. Any color pepper is fine. You can use red, green, yellow, orange. It doesn't matter which color you use for this recipe. And yeah, like I was saying before, feel free to add whatever ingredients that you would like. It's a pretty easy thing to kind of make your own. So you can add whatever you like in it. Like I said earlier, pre-cooked chicken goes really nice in here, or even corn. Corn is really good in here. And I know some people like to put rice in their quesadillas. So yeah, you can do that as well. So I'm almost done cutting my pepper. And try and get little cubes, nice and little cubes. You don't want anything too big. Okay, so right now I've got my bowl of peppers here, as you can see, little cubes. Now I'm going to start cutting my green onion. So see how it has like an elastic band on the top there? What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut off the tops just a tiny bit, because I don't really want the top. And if you buy your green onions with a little elastic band on the top, that's great. If you don't, if yours comes just like that, that's perfectly fine as well. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just going to chop a tiny bit off the top here. It's gonna be about that much. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut like that straight down, nice and thin. So that gave me a small handful of green onion. So I'm probably gonna do 2 of those. So there's one that I'm gonna put in my bowl. And there's my second. And looking at it, you can kind of see whether you want more or less. I might actually do one more, I think, but I really like green onion, so it's totally up to you. Okay, so there is my green onion. I'm just gonna put that aside. Now I'm actually gonna add my black beans. So I have some black beans in a container already, but if you don't, what you're gonna do is you're just going to open your can of black beans and use maybe a quarter of it or half of it, depending on how big your can of beans is. Okay, so right now I've got my peppers and my green onion and my beans in here, and I'm actually just gonna start giving it a stir. And if you have any pre-cooked chicken, add it into your bowl right now as well. Just gonna give it a little stir. Just like that. Okay. So my pan's getting nice and warm now. And I'm gonna actually start shredding my cheese. So I've just got like a block of cheese here that I'm just gonna shred. You can kind of shred as much cheese as you want for this recipe. So I've got like a good little pile there, so I'm just gonna start with that. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm just gonna pop my cheese to the side, and I'm going to grab my tortilla that has my salsa on it. Now I'm going to start scooping my filling onto my quesadilla on the side that has the salsa. You don't want to fill it too much, like you don't want to have it overflowing, but just like that. Just so that your salsa is kind of covered. Perfect, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And on top of this, I'm just going to put some shredded cheese. Now the cheese is gonna melt on the pan as we're cooking it. Okay, so add as much cheese as you'd like. Now this part is gonna be maybe a little bit tricky, so you have to be really careful. I'm just gonna fold my tortilla over. I'm gonna press it down lightly so that I know it's gonna stay. Being careful, you're gonna transfer your tortilla onto your pan. You're gonna hear a nice little sizzle. And in order to make the cheese melt, I'm actually going to cover it with a lid. Like that. And if you need to turn your stove up, you can absolutely do that as well. Just make sure that you're keeping an eye on your quesadilla. Now, while that is cooking on the one side, I'm gonna actually start preparing my second tortilla shell. So I'm just going to give it a nice little fold in the middle. Again, I'm gonna grab my salsa here, approximately 2 tablespoons. And yeah, you do want to keep an eye on that because you don't want it getting too brown on the one side. Yeah, and we're just gonna brown them on each side. That's how we know they're done, and when the cheese is melted. Okay, so I've got my 2 tablespoons of salsa there, and I'm just going to add my toppings. If you've added chicken, go ahead and add your chicken on here as well that's been in your bowl. Maybe you've added some corn. That's awesome as well. Just like that. So I'm just gonna quickly check on my quesadilla here. I'm gonna grab a flipper, just give it a little peek. Ooh, that actually looks perfect. So this part is going to be hard to do, but you wanna try and flip it and make sure that your filling doesn't come out, okay? See how it's beautifully golden brown on the one side? That's exactly what we want. So I'm just gonna close my lid again, and we're gonna give that a couple minutes. I'm gonna put a tiny bit more filling on my second one here. If you're really good at multitasking, this will go really well for you. So I'm just gonna add my shredded cheese on top. Awesome. That was actually a perfect amount of cheese that I shredded there. I'm just gonna give my tortilla a fold. Okay. I actually have a large plate kind of put to the side here that I'm gonna put my quesadillas on. So I'm just gonna quickly look at the bottom. Ah, it looks perfect. So again, being really careful, I'm just going to transfer this to my plate, just like that. So that's what it looks like. The cheese is nicely melted and it's nice and golden brown on either side. So again, being careful. If you get a little bit of spillage, that's fine. I'm gonna transfer my second one onto my pan here. Gonna close the lid. Okay, so now that you have this, what I recommend doing is actually cutting it in half. And it doesn't take much, just like that. So you're gonna have quarters of quesadillas. See where I cut that down the middle, just like that? Just right down the half, perfect. And what's really nice is if you actually serve quesadillas with salsa or sour cream. They go really, really nicely with either of those toppings. Perfect. This one's browning a little faster. It doesn't take long for them to brown, so make sure that you're keeping a really close eye on these because you don't want them getting overly brown too fast. And you know what? I could actually probably, with the filling that I have here, I could probably actually make a third quesadilla. But yeah, if you want more filling, basically the more filling you make, the more quesadillas you're going to make, okay? So remember, I didn't use that much pepper. I used half a pepper. I used a couple cuts of green onion and about half a cup of beans, black beans, and it's made about 3 quesadillas so far. So it doesn't take much. I'm just gonna check that. Ah, that also looks perfect. I'm gonna grab my plate here. I'm just gonna turn my stove off because I'm just gonna make 2 for myself today. Slowly and carefully transfer onto your plate. And I'm just gonna give it a quick little cut down the middle. Just like that. And there you go. There is our homemade quesadillas. Super, super simple, really easy recipe. You can kind of add as little or as much as you want. You can add some pre-cooked chopped chicken, like I said before. And yeah, these go really great with sour cream and salsa. So what I like to do personally is I just actually take sour cream. I'll take a little spoonful and I'll actually just spread it all over the tops of my quesadillas and eat them just like that. So yeah, really simple video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please send me pictures of what you make and maybe some of the ingredients that you added. So yeah, I would love to see what you made. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.